Sometimes it takes a while for it to think, kind of like its owner.
Okay.
So now put it in presentation mode.
Okay.
There we go.
And is our pointer still active?
No, you probably have to.
Okay,
I'll
okay.
probably have to re-engage that every time I do that.
Okay, laser pointer. Okay, we're recording. Would you like to get started there? There's one intervention. We started.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the McAllister House Museum. I'm just getting myself on camera here. Well, we don't like to brag about it, but you're actually standing in the barn, folks, of the McAllister House. The McAllister House was completed in 1873. So it is the oldest architectural edifice in your neighborhood, and including if you live in Patty Jewett or the Old North End or somewhere adjacent. This is our history right here, folks. But tonight is about historic Uptown neighborhood, and we welcome everyone. I would just like to introduce Amy Miller, and I'm Eric Metzger. We are the staff of the McAllister House Museum. We've also got some docents and volunteers here in the audience, but the paid staff is Amy and I. We try to pay in other ways. But we welcome you all to this meeting, and we welcome Historic Uptown neighborhood. One of the things, folks, and I don't want to take too long, but if I was to get 5 minutes with you all and you asked me, tell me something interesting historically, we started some of these conversations just a couple minutes ago, but what would I like you to know in a brief amount of time is that this individual, Mr. McAllister, and his wife and the family, they were the consummate civic activists. They did everything. Any of us that think we sit on too many boards or we're spread too thin, these guys really were on all of the boards. They started all of the interesting things, and I could sit here and name them off one by one, on and on and on, but that would get a little boring after a moment. You get the point. The school board they started, the Horticultural Society, Colorado College. So it goes from big, important academic things to small little community-based things. This individual had something to do with it. So that makes him an interesting person to study and makes him an interesting historical figure and important in Colorado Springs development. So if you have any questions, I've pulled out some books up here, and I'm going to be here at the closing. I don't know if Amy will, but please grab either of us. We're open 3 days a week with tour times at 10:30, 12:30, and 2:30. Please come and visit us so then you can know your community inside and out. Thank you for the time, and I'm going to turn it back over to Cheryl Brown.
Okay, so I'm the president. Oh, okay, we have to adjust. He's a little taller than I am by a lot of bit. Okay. Okay, so I'm the president of the Historic Uptown neighborhood, and just to quickly tell you what our boundaries are. Our boundaries include Wasatch all the way to Monument Valley Park, and Cache all the way down to Bijou. And so we are a very strong mix of commercial and residential. And so let me go ahead and okay. So let me give you some unique characteristics of our neighborhood. And one important one is that we have a significant presence on the National Register of Historic Places. So we have the Weber Wasatch Historic District. We have the Boulder Crescent District, and we have various, individual buildings. And I'll show you a picture of just kind of a general overview of how historic this neighborhood is. And we just, this last year, we renamed ourselves. We used to be called the Near North End, and we changed our name to Historic Uptown. Yay! Because everybody thought we were Old North End, and we couldn't get distinctive enough because the names were so similar that we decided we would say historic because that's what we are. And I just wanted to let you guys know that. And so not only do we have the significance and, historic significance, but the community of residences, businesses, landlords, students, I mean, we have the gamut, which either you love it or you wouldn't live here, because that's what this neighborhood is. And it's beautiful in that it's just real vibrant that way. And amenities, right? Fine arts, food, boutiques. I mean, it's a perfect neighborhood. I think it's a very mixed use, right? And so we're in walking distance to so many things. And what we care about, identifying, preserving, celebrating historic houses, businesses, features, and this is what we did is we took a poll of the neighborhood, and, we probably should do this, every so often, but this is kind of a poll of the neighborhood. And this is where we came up with these slides, is we wanted to know, what was important to you? And, as is always the case, we are definitely preserving our medians. We Willamette, we have the Nevada, corridor, we have the Cascade corridor. Those are very important to us. Last year, we did planted a lot of trees in Willamette, and we intend to plant more trees more west on Willamette. And then pretty much we think that our canopy will be in a good shape. We just have one more group of trees we need to go after. And so, and the city helped us a lot with Nevada because of the sesquicentennial. Did I say that right? So they planted a lot of trees, which was wonderful for us. And, safety, it's always a big deal for us, right? I mean, and this is what I'm always telling you is, if there are any issues and I need to know about it, tell me, info at Historic Uptown, if you want my phone number, I really need to know, if you're experiencing something, because I'm kind of out east. I'm like right between Wasatch and Weber on Dale. And sometimes there's a lot going on. I mean, just a couple of blocks and all of a sudden you're in a different world in our neighborhood. And so I need to know in your world, if there's something. I'm very familiar with the homeless, I'm familiar with Monument Valley Park, and we're familiar with the cleanup, and we actually Mariah works with the rubbish roundup, to try to keep MVP clean. But so, and our website, Historic Uptown, it's come to it. It's just an incredible website. It's hard to say. And and, so our total properties, we have about 600 properties, renter occupied 61%, owner occupied 39%. A majority of the owner occupied is on the eastern side of our neighborhood, right? More of the rentals are more towards the west. But then, it's kind of like we're flanked residential near Monument Valley Park. And then the rentals are kind of more centrally located. And obviously CC is a big part of that. And by the way, these slides are going to be on the web. So you don't have to worry about that, right? And single family, again, 50-50, right? Single family, 50%, multifamily, 50%. And so we have, what's amazing, and so we have 593 properties, but we have a number of multiple buildings on properties, right? ADUs. Things like that. And so while you're seeing more numbers of buildings are higher, it's because we have a lot of ADUs, because our zoning our zoning is mostly R2 and R5, R4, but we have a lot of in fact, there's very little, if not any R1, very, very little R1 zoning. And so, and what I circled is what's really important to us is greater than, and this is 2022. If I ran this script again, I'm sure we'd even be higher, because a couple years goes by and then we swallow up more, properties that are over 50 years old. And so we have, almost 80% of our properties are greater than 50 years old, and over half of them are greater than 100 years old. It's just an amazing place that we have, and we still have them here. It didn't get torn up in our neighborhood like they did downtown. We kind of were saved from the big tear down that happened. So, we're fortunate for that. And the net dwelling unit per AC, this is how the city determines density. And the average density of Colorado Springs is at 5 dwelling units per acre. And we have roughly 25. We're 5 times the density of Colorado Springs whole. So they can't really kind of come after us and say, hey, we want more density, because we'll be like, You know, I mean, even our zoning supports density, just the way we're zoned. And so, so we're gonna just do a quick treasurer's update. The treasurer couldn't make it tonight. And so, you know, we run on a pretty lean, mean machine, budget, but, we just, we just applied for a 501c3, even though the neighborhood itself, the near North End neighborhood was started over 20 years ago. But it wasn't really, you know, it really wasn't very active. And then we came and picked it up and made it a lot more active at around 2018. And then that's when we, you know, started registering it and started doing everything. And then this year we just started the 501c3. So, you know, we're, you know, but our expenses, WordPress, you know, the standard stuff, applications, we have a PO box, you know, we have initial, you know, bank account stuff. And so what was really great is we got a sponsorship from Underline, which I don't know if you haven't tried, they're amazing. Highly, you know, got a lot of integrity. And they're $65 a month. I mean, they're great. When they first moved here, Diane and we were right on it. And then we kind of contacted them because we thought they were a real asset to our neighborhood. It's an internet. And they do fiber optic, gigabit speeds, both directions. It's amazing internet.
They housed over at the over at Cybersecurity Center there up in Nevada.
I don't know. I don't think so, but Underline has a really neat philosophy of, you know, underserved neighborhoods. You know, they just have a really neat philosophy, which just kind of rang with me. And, you know, especially in our neighborhood, because it has such mixed use. I didn't include the slides because we didn't have time to update it, but you know, kind of the average income of, you know, median income is roughly around 35,000 about 4 years ago. This is not a very affluent neighborhood, even though we have affluence, you know, there are some properties that are affluent. The median income in this neighborhood is not that high, has a lot of renters. And, you know, and, you know, our housing is more flexible. So you can have a monthly, you know, rent of $800,000-900,000, which you can't get, you know, in the greater Colorado Springs. So it's affordable here. And it's affordable mainly because of our historic assets that we have. You know, they've been modified, they're not brand new. So, you know, we're very affordable in this neighborhood. And so moving on. So I kind of wanted to highlight Mariah's work, and so we do have a new website. If you come look at it, you know, what we are doing is we're kind of celebrating all the properties, you know, in this neighborhood. And so we have web pages for, you know, properties, individual properties, where we talk about the history. We have timelines, we have Gazette Telegraph articles, you know, we are researching, and we keep this historic information. And so the first thing in our website, if you see it, is if you have historic information, send it to us. And we will put it on our website and we'll start creating pages. And it's really important. But as it stands right now, we as a neighborhood are focused on Parkside. And that's basically the properties west of Cascade. That's where we're focusing right now. But, you know, we're gonna try to march eastward, you know, to anybody who's interested, because our intent is to, if you want it designated, that's cool. If you don't, that's cool. You know, but you know, if you want to celebrate it, if you want to have tax credits, that's important, you know, to you, then, you know, we can go through the legwork, which is significant to historically designate a property here. And so we have a Wikipedia page now. We have a newsletter that's grown to 348 subscribers. It's just amazing. And if you guys are interested in the newsletter, you know, historicuptown.org, just sign up and you'll see what's going on. And we have a lot going on. Yeah. I mean, do not think that we're sleeping at all. And I'll show you what we've got planned for next year. And so Facebook, Instagram, our analytics are great. And, you know, we printed a whole bunch of flyers. What we do is we sweep the neighborhood every few years and just hit every property so that they know, you know, you're in a neighborhood organization. sign up for the newsletter, let us know what you want, because that's the only way we can really give, serve the neighborhood is if there's communication. Yes,
Kimberly, I apologize. What's our northern boundary?
our northern boundary is Cache Laputa. Yeah, and our southern is Bijou. And our eastern is Wasatch, the east side of Wasatch, all the way to Monument Valley Park. Yeah, it's,
So we yes, then we all of them.
well, at Colorado College is their own thing.
Do you have any,
Enough said about that.
yeah, I mean, that says it all, doesn't it? As
We have meetings, we have a relationship. And so if there's something at Colorado College, like if their students are keeping you up at night, we want to know. Because we stop it, we go in and, or we have, depending on where you are, Mitchick's Run is also near CC, Onan. And depending on where you live, we will go after them if they disrupt you.
Are they reaching out to connect with you guys as part of their?
Yes, we're gonna have a summer party with them.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's gonna be probably by the garage, that grassy area. So absolutely, and we're trying to get them to open up Robson so we can have a neighborhood skating party.
I'm a publisher of a magazine. If you go on your home, you have a cover in the magazine.
Oh, ooh, okay, let's talk. Oh, yeah, cool. Okay, so let's move on. I don't know, Mariah, do you want to do the ding if I'm really like?
Oh.
I don't know, right? Okay, so
This
this is our neighborhood. We're actually doing good. We're doing good.
Did you want to say? I
Huh?
don't know, any
Oh,
more
sorry.
about hopefully, for the event?
Oh,
Did you want?
yeah, well, we're gonna send it out too, but if you're interested or want to help, this is our communications. director. It's like, if you want to help with this summer party, please let us know.
We're gonna post that later.
Yeah, we have it.
July
20th.
July 20th.
It's a Saturday, right? We thought,
Yeah.
not around the 4th of July, but right.
Yeah,
So the 20th of July is the date. And we have a meeting again with Colorado College in a couple of weeks, I think, to continue to solidify that.
I have a contact with their communications director coming to. So
oh, that's great. Well, and what we really want is if any of our businesses want to set up a table, they should know what's going on in the neighborhood. We want to know about the businesses,
I think the sales director for Tesla here in Colorado Springs is.
Oh, cool.
Can I test drive it?
Whose Tesla's out there? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Is that you? Okay. Oh, girl. Okay, so this is our neighborhood, and so everything in red is the National Register Historic District. So this is the Weber Wasatch, and then this is the Fine Arts Center, and so this is the Dale House, and this is Cascade Apartments. Please, Tim. No, this is Cascade. Or this is Cascade Apartments. Tim's like, no, and this is the Boulder Crescent. And so these red ones are basically all historically designated. Orange ones qualify for it. So if we really wanted to, we could turn them red. It's just a matter of money. And then what we're focusing right here and Tim's discussion is going to be on is this place I'm circling right here, which we are calling Parkside District. This whole district right here, we're looking to designate just as one big district. And so that's kind of where we're focusing right now. And it's incredibly intact, which is what we're looking for to designate. Okay. It's going to what the Willamette. So there's West Willamette. It's going to be south of this West Willamette, and it's going to include this property here. So it's all of this just to the south of Willamette. Blessing, we have emailed. But they already designated. Pretty much. There's some that aren't. We do, yeah, and we've contacted them. They have not been, if you know them, please come talk to me. Okay, just what? Yeah, I know, because because Buck Blessing and, they own quite a bit, right? So if you guys know them, let's talk. Okay. And so we intend, at some point, we could potentially march into this area. We're not gonna do anything. If it's already designated, it's good enough for us, We just want historic tax credits. We want our properties to look great. We want everybody to be proud of them. And in order to do that, we're hoping that money can be applied so that you can have great properties and we could have a great living area. Okay, so that's kind of where we are with that. Okay, I think something changed because now. Okay, so this is not, we're not going through details here. Okay, so don't panic. I just want to go through the phases. Okay, we're just going to go through the phases. Don't panic. We spent 2002 gathering data for the Parkside District. Well, it was before that because our historian back there, Tim, has spent a lot of time. And then there's a history that we had to draft because you have to prove you're historic. You just can't say it, and it doesn't even matter when you were built. It's, there's got to be, you have to tie yourself to somebody important, then we had to meet with the owners and, calm them down because, we weren't going to take over their property, and then, to explain what's going on because it, can be intimidating if you don't know what's going on. And so now we're in the phase of the owners are just totally open. We've had, over 50% saying, oh yeah. And then we have a lot of people who live out of town, which we don't hear from, and that's just kind of, where we are with it. And so now we've notified the city, we're going to go in front of the Historic Preservation Board and we're going to ask them to, basically work with us to designate this district. And that's where we are now. And then there's a whole bunch of initiating the process with planning, going in front of city council. It's a thing, right? So, but as a neighborhood, we're doing that. You just, as the owner, you just need to, like, when you get the green card, don't say no. And that's what we're trying to tell you, don't say no. We're trying to explain to you what it is, and then we'll just take it forward. It's kind of the way it is. Yeah, we just have one, Michelle Talrito. Yeah, she's totally it. We don't have any, Henjum is north of you. And so we're not looking at the text there. We're just going to move forward. And so Diane's going to come up and talk. The thing about this neighborhood is we don't really have an official neighborhood plan, which makes you vulnerable to a lot of changes the city wants to do, builders want to do, everybody wants to do. And so Diane is going to talk about what it's going to take for us to create a neighborhood plan so that we have control. No, I don't know. I just reached.
Okay. So my name is Diane Bridges. I live on Dell Street between Weber and Wasatch. I've been there for about 30 years. That's amazing to me. And I'm the vice president of your board. We have about 5 or 6 board members. My eyes are communications point of contact. And we do our best to serve you all. Right. And as Cheryl was saying earlier, remember the phrase, what do we care about as a neighborhood? And she said that we had queried everybody. I don't remember when that was. That it would be wise to potentially update that, as well as, each one of you may have issues, or we collectively might have opportunities that have a column, right? This neighborhood plan, which is a process and a document that the city is accustomed to doing, and we work quite closely with Peter Wysocki, who's the director of city planning. And there are other neighborhoods that have plans like Mill Street does, Oman and a few others. But in any event, it's a plan where, we can craft, what do we think our neighborhood is? What is our vision for it? What do we think is unique about it? This would be a nice little pairing with the historic paperwork, I'll call it that, the overlays that that Cheryl and Tim have talked about. It's a plan that's really a vision. What do we want to be, right? What do we care about? And then in the plan, you can identify problems like maybe traffic, right? Or safety or whatever, listed a variety of things we can address. We can address what's important to us. That's the bottom line in the plan. There's a template we can follow if we want to address land use and get that sophisticated, we can do that. If we opt not to, we can do that too. But in any event, what are the things that are top of mind, the problems, the opportunities, right? What do we want to do maybe in the next 2 to 5 years? What do we care about? What are our goals? And then eventually, if we have big things like maybe we even want to do a neighborhood watch program or something. In the plan, we can articulate all that, prioritize it, and ideally get support from the city. On things, maybe new grants. So that's so you all can be part of this. So we'll be sending out Mariah and the team, communications on it right now. I'm building the details on, well, how will we reach out to you? How will we make sure of the 700 properties that everybody gets a voice who wants to have one? So I'm building that plan right now. So it's kind of cool. Hope you guys would be interested in providing input. Any questions on that or?
Quick question.
Of course, yes.
Sorry, I'm late. I went to the front thing and I didn't think anybody was there.
Yeah.
I'm at 619 North Nevada. Is that part of this? Gave me Carlin.
Yes, then the answer would be yes.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And we like the properties on Nevada. We like the properties that Willamette. We like a lot of these properties. We want to preserve them. Nevada is very important to us, by the way. And so if you're interested, we will come knock on your door. We actually, a part of Miami Valley Park is a part of our neighborhood, yes. So specifically that area, and what do you say? It's actually a city park. It has its own management, right? The Friends of Monument Valley Park. But we are very interested and we like to know what's going on with that park because it affects our neighborhood very strong.
Richard's Farming is again involved in the is really excited about Richard's portion.
She's out there with the bags, so she's.
They moved their house. They moved to center to beautiful.
That's fine.
Yeah,
Maybe we can bring them back up.
yeah, it was just more about safety. The area they were cleaning up the gutter.
We are always
they
in
work hard.
discussion with the Parks Department.
Can you repeat what you
said?
said? Because we didn't hear that. The Richards Brothers Shrimp, they moved it over out of Monument Valley Park and over to America the Beautiful because of safety reasons. The south end of Monument Valley Park has a large homeless population. And despite many reach outs to the city for safety, they were ignored. And so because of safety, they moved the thing to America the Beautiful, which is actually outside of our neighborhood. But I know that she's looking for other areas to clean up within the neighborhood because she wants to stay involved with this neighborhood. Because obviously, Fort Richard was in this part of town. So, if you have a nature Sonia, yeah, she does. Yes, she lives at the Cascade Park Apartments. And that's what inspired her to do Monument Valley Park. But really, it just became a safety issue. People that weren't wanting to show up just because of harassment. But they've got 25 volunteers now. They do a really good job.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
There's
awesome.
work being done on the park now. All that vegetation is coming down and it should make it a whole lot safer. If we need it, would you come back?
Well, Sonia's willing to come back. It wasn't her decision, even out of it. It was more just the volunteers weren't showing up because of concerns of safety. And, I mean, I experienced harassment out there and I got a pretty big backbone. So, it wasn't safe. And many phone calls, and emails, even if you got involved. Nobody can help us with safety. So it wasn't worth it. Because there's a lot of kids that volunteer as well. We got the Dale House Project involved.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
just come from there. Also, the Dale House Project, I'll get you signed up for the newsletter. They have a program going on right now to help clean up their yards for free. So they just want like a small donation. They'll send kids out who want to come help. So they need to like snow shovel over needs or they got kids who want to come help. Yeah, that's a good resource too.
and just a real quick comment about the cleanup of Monument Valley Park. There's a lot of roles to pick up a homeless person's stuff because it's their home. And you can't just go in there and clean it up. There's a rule, there's a protocol. It's quite complex. And that's why they can't just go in there and clean it up. There's a whole protocol they have to go through. And so, and there's a safety problem because of the needles and it's the city kind of is managing it and we're kind of working with the parks because we don't feel it's fast enough. But that's a whole different thing.
Yes,
Yes.
question. Since, we live here in Manhattan, we are lucky because immediate neighbor, in addition to Jeff and the other wonderful neighborhood, we have the church. The church always showed, church Episcopal, the Grace Episcopal. And we have a we always had to have a direct approach, and we've been also talking about the homeless situation. But I wanted to ask, since we heard that all the other churches are in the same situation. In fact, this one that was basically for months, years, was a gentleman basically installed into, between the columns. He was almost, and then they finally had to move this person away. I don't know how they did it. Our position is we want to preserve these people. But we cannot do it by ourselves. So my question is, what is the position? You have contact with all those churches, communities related to the church in relation to the homeless problem. Are they aware of what we're doing here?
The churches themselves seem to be working together in this neighborhood, attacking it their way, which makes a lot of sense. And I'm familiar with it. Yes, I'm familiar with what the homeless are doing in, near the statues. It's a problem, right? But the homeless situation is a problem throughout our neighborhood and Monument Valley Park. And I have given cards to the churches and I said, do you want me to get involved? And they seem to want to do it themselves, which is fine, but I've always told them, if you want to contact me, if you want me to advocate for you, we can do that because we have a lot of connections with the city.
St.
And-
Mary's in Shakespeare, right? The Bijou crosses the cathedral and then the St. Mary's house.
It is not. Well, the soup kitchen is, yes,
Yeah.
but the actual church is not.
South.
Yeah, it's south of Bijou, right? But what is in our neighborhood, and we've had a number of discussions with them and, it's not, they have a mission to do that, but it is very hard on the Boulder Crescent neighborhood, very hard. It is a tough situation.
And Grace was
Very
in
modest.
And Grace, yes, all of Grace and St. Stephen's,
In addition to this, some of the churches are in trouble financially.
yes.
So that opened another door because apparently somewhere in the city, there's this idea project to help the church in exchange of taking care of.
Oh,
Those are rumors that they've been going around.
Hmm.
And, but we don't know exactly if this thing is true, but apparently, also in order to give one more, let's say, piece to the puzzle, how we can help this community, because in my opinion, it's a phenomenon, is all over the world. I'm Italian, we had the same problem. I wouldn't say has no solution, but obviously is a very difficult thing.
Mhm.
Those are people, they have their own histories, and they cannot be dismissed or
Right.
treated.
And it's a lot of it is a mental issues.
Yes.
And we can't, and so it requires such
Yes.
special handling that we as a neighborhood can't. We can communicate to, but
Right.
it is a special group of people that deal with
But the
it.
thing is, for couple of times, for instance, I had to intervene, because, you know, we had the beauty salon here with women. Not necessarily was dark, but, you know, intervene to quiet this guy, because, you know, you don't know them.
Right.
I managed maybe to know some of them because I see it more often.
Right.
Then the other thing that happened is gentleman that broke windows. That was, I think, a couple, including the architects over there. So, you know, the damage was not sure. And so we have episodes like this.
Yes, we do.
So what to do with this?
So-
situation.
So Steve Posey, who is in charge of housing for the city, I'll just say that. Monday, in the city council work session, he gave a presentation about homeless. I haven't yet had an opportunity to listen to it. It's on Facebook. I only bring that up just to say that, you know, it is a topic and a subject, that a lot
And I
of
want
folks
to
have
add
to
one thing, and then I stop because I know that, we know, as a matter of fact, that the police, what they are available, there's the police officer actually that patrols their home, and he's the one, and now, actually helped the neighborhood here on Willamette
Nice.
to solve a couple of situations. There's a name, for this officer, but, you know, I don't know if it's the case at the moment, but they are available to be more present in the area.
If they know that there is an issue.
Right,
They will,
Yes.
they will give it special attention.
yeah,
They will do that. Yes.
right, so.
And they have some specifically for Boulder Crescent.
Yeah,
For that
it's-
exact
you
reason.
know, it's a sign, police officer for our neighborhood that we
Yeah.
can. Want to be there.
Yeah. Okay, okay. Okay, so the goals, historic preservation, we're gonna obviously move this forward. We're starting the neighborhood plan that Diane mentioned. We're also working with the city right now to get neighborhood signs that mark us as historic Uptown neighborhood. And we also want to, in addition to that, mark our historic districts. You know, so that if you come in and developer comes in and says, hey, I want to rip this down, and we're saying, hey, this is an historic district, you know. You're gonna get some resistance, you know, obviously, maybe some shame, you know, but you know, stay away, right?
Yeah.
You know, so we're looking to start putting signs up that say who we are and you know, to celebrate the properties that we do have that are historic, and that we do not want developers in here, you know, for the sole purpose of taking away our history. And so that's what we're working with the city, and we've actually been working with Todd Frisbee, and we've actually progressed quite nicely. And we got a little picky about how we wanted the signs to look, so he's off doing some investigation. Because we wanted cool signs. We just didn't want the square own-in signs, you know, we just didn't want that own-in scrolly sign. We wanted a half circle with Palmer on it. And he's like, okay, we'll get back to you. So I'm just letting you know that we will communicate in the newsletter once we figure this out. But we, the neighborhood, are responsible for paying for a majority of them. And so we're gonna be asking, you know, if you want one on your corner, you know, they're like about $35 or $40, but our special one might be more. But we want to mark them, and we want to specifically mark our districts.
The
Okay.
downtown association. That's what
No.
it's us.
No, they're really business focused. We're more neighborhood focused. It's a different focus, yeah. So, we're working right now with city traffic. There are a lot of accidents, if you haven't noticed already, that I think we need to do some holy water on Willamette, because we don't know what's happening with Willamette. But Willamette and Nevada, motorcycles get hit all the time. If it's not Willamette and Nevada, it's Willamette and Wasatch, and whatever it is with motorcycles in Willamette, it's a bad news situation.
That median there is kind of weird. Has
Yeah.
a weird angle to it, and that possibly facilitates the drainage. But the actual turn there is a weird shape even actually, so people that try to speed into the getting themselves.
Yeah,
Merged into that northward bound portion, I suppose the other directions southward bound, but as you
Yeah.
cross that median zone, there's kind of a incentive to rush into that. So I
Yeah.
can see why if you're a motorcycle.
well, and if you're us, it's like, get rid of the median over our dead body. And so then it then becomes like a put up a light, you know, is there something we can do to stop this? You know, and so without doing anything with the median, what are they gonna do? Traffic safety is now analyzing it. They're giving us their options because we can't tell them what to do because we don't know what to do. But they know that medians are important to us and they're starting to analyze it. They're also starting to analyze potentially putting bike lanes on Wasatch. Because it'll just slow everything down, you know, bike lanes are, yeah, and there's not enough traffic on Wasatch to where it's a problem. They'll never put a bike lane on Nevada ever in the history of Colorado Springs will they ever do that because of the traffic. And so, bye-bye, thank you. And so that's just something to know, and we're gonna communicate what's going on, and we'll have it in our next newsletter, because we have a meeting with them about every other month. And they're analyzing, and then they're gonna come up with options. And because we know safety is a problem,
You know, they have absolutely stopped patrolling the speed on Nevada.
I know.
It is like NASCAR out there. Actually, it is so bad. My wife is going to leave me. Unless we move.
So leave you for traffic reasons?
Well, it's, you know, you can't.
Maybe you need to come to our traffic safety meetings, because we are really involved with traffic right now, because that's a problem. And so now, you know, we always advocate for the city. We get involved with zoning, transportation. They're talking about BRTs on Weber, you know, we're like, ah. And so we're always kind of in communication with the city to try to figure out what they're going to do to us. And then Weber Wasatch Historic District, Tim is designing walking tours. So we're going to have some more walking tours of Weber Wasatch. And it looks like, you know, the safety thing, we don't want divorces. And, you know, and then, you know, the homeless thing, got it. And when we start to come up with more information, maybe that's what we should put in the newsletter. This is what, you know, this is what's happening. This is what the city's working on. Maybe that kind of communication is helpful. Because we do have some insight into that.
Do you need
actually.
pictures of homeless on the roof with dogs and stuff like that?
Oh, my goodness.
I have, yeah.
If you have that.
I just,
Yes.
it's a sad.
Right, twice in one day, yeah.
So we're gonna have a quick board election, and I'm gonna tell you something really quick, okay? So a couple of the board members, we need 5 on the board to be a viable board, right? I'm applying for president. Is there anybody else that would like to be president? Yeah, right, okay. So if you don't want me to be president, we're gonna do the negative vote, okay? Okay, so if you don't want me to be president, then you have to be president. No, I'm sorry, okay. But is there anybody that is against me being president for the next year? Okay, I'm the president. Okay, does anybody want to be vice president? Okay, Diane is volunteering to be vice president. Does anybody want her not to be vice president?
You don't even know me, but how?
She says, I'm gonna plan out the world next year.
I've
Okay.
been that gender.
In charge of all vice.
Vice, oh my gosh. Secretary, is there anybody who would be excited and interested in being the secretary of this board? And that's fine, you know, I just, you know, okay. We're gonna go find a homeless person who's knows how to write, and that's our secretary. And treasurer, is there anybody who's just like, oh my gosh, I want to do your finance?
Don't we have it on?
A treasurer?
Well, it's Jeff.
It's Jeff, but he doesn't want to, no, he decided that he didn't want to be our treasurer.
Is he here today? So he's not, he has to be charged.
Thank you. Okay. So we have president, vice president, and we have 3 board members that are not officers, and they all want to be back on the board. Monica Hobbs, Tam Walski, and Christy Chirby. And they're coming back on the board. So, but they don't want the responsibility of all this work. So again, I'm gonna go, you know, track down somebody in our neighborhood somehow. But if everybody's okay with them being back on the board, if you have any, you know, if you do not want.
President of Stockman's Banks. Nice.
Huh?
President of Stockman's Banks is a very nice person.
Oh,
I should go over there and say
I should.
hi.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's it on the board election. And now Tim Scanlon's going to talk about the Parkside District and the historic significance and why we care so much about it.
That's funny.
I know. And we're still gonna do it. There's some, yeah, there's.
Come on, they do their presentation, right?
Yes.
Yay, we're there. Thank you, Diane. Good evening. My name's Tim Scanlon. Thank you for coming. Before we begin, I'd like to express my appreciation to Eric Metzger and the McAllister House Museum for hosting this. It's very gracious of them, and you're taking up your time. We really appreciate your assistance. This slide kind of says it all, historic preservation. I define historic preservation as the idea that you accept the fact that change is going to occur, change is inevitable. But historic preservation takes the approach that with effort, you can shape the change that occurs. Not for everything, but for things that you can affect. You can do that. The idea is to preserve the historic resources that we've got that provide us with our background and our heritage and actually make us a unique community in the country. So, several months ago, the Neighborhood Association began investigating the origins of this neighborhood pocket that we'll investigate. We started assembling data, and much of it has been placed on the website. Mariah has done absolutely astonishing work, and I encourage you to take a look at everything that is listed there. I serve as just a confidant and advisor, and I suggest things. I also do research. The project purpose, near the end of the research effort, we said, we've assembled all this information, it's really cool stuff, what do we do with it? And one of the answers was, well, let's seek historic preservation overlay zoning. It's a way of officially, formally recognizing historic character. And it's a way of gently assisting change to be compatible with historic resources. Historic zoning already exists for one of the properties in the district. That's I call it the Russ Ammer Apartments. It's the eclectic one at 624 North Cascade. I refer to the buildings. The one to the south is the Hagerman Mansion. The one to the north I call the Russ Ammer Apartments. They have interchangeable names at Cascade Park Apartments, and it gets confused. So I refer to the mansion and the building north. Features of the project. The area was named for its proximity to Monument Valley Parkside. We have decided to proceed on a voluntary basis. We have an outline, a boundary. What we are doing is asking property owners to voluntarily agree to overlay zoning. The city decides zoning as a matter of course for city council, but we're asking individuals to volunteer their properties to be designated. This is a map of the district. The central area here between Mesa and Monument is not part of the district. That was the, I believe it's like Brookside Assisted Living Center. And that was built in 1986. It's not, but the areas to the north and south certainly are. The green dots display the approximate location of historic homes. We're going to show some vicinity photos. This is Monument Valley Park, visible from Monument Street. You can see the cul-de-sac in the foreground with the park in midground. On the north, we have the Fine Arts Center. Both the building and its parking lot form the northern boundary. And the Fine Arts Center is one of those listed in the National Register. We have the historic medians on North Cascade. I like to point out that the medians are the result of the first capital improvement done by the Fountain Colony. When they platted out the area into lots and blocks, they planted the avenues 140 feet wide. So you can include a landscape area in between the different directions of the street. Colorado Springs, when it was founded, didn't have anything that grew higher than a yucca. It was about there. So they had to implant trees and they had to water the trees. So they built the El Paso Canal. They imported 6,000 trees from the Arkansas River and planted them to provide us with the initial parts of greenery. And then to the south, we have the Higginbotham building. I knew Don Higginbotham. He was an architect. I've discussed this building several times with other people. I'm kind of fond of this building because I knew what originally was proposed, which was a glass and brass mirrored glass box. This is so much better than what was initially proposed. So I give credit to Mr. Higginbotham for that. 86. Okay, the Parkside District is a construct. Some of you are familiar with Pleasant Valley, which is basically a coherent neighborhood. It was built as a neighborhood. Village 7 was built as several neighborhoods. The Parkside District evolved over 70 years with 1 or 2 properties being developed at a time, with the exception of a cluster that we will get to. The occupants, this has a variety of architectural styles that are displayed. It has representative of significant eras in our history. The individuals, with many of the buildings named after them, were significant in our development. These are some of the individuals. An understanding of the people who lived here and what they designed helps to appreciate the history of the area. The integrity is important. Many of these buildings resemble the way they were actually built. Some of them have experienced a few changes. Quite often the changes reinforce the character of the district, so it remains historic. This is a plat map. This is where the area was defined by lots and blocks and streets. It's really kind of interesting. This is addition number 5 to the city of Colorado Springs. Number 4 is to the south here. That includes the Boulder Crescent area. But here you can see Monument Creek meandering through. Here is Willamette Street, and we include some of the properties on the south side of Willamette. We include all of Block 6 and all of Block, or I would guess that's G, and all of I.
Green tunnels, green tunnels, I was kind of curious, I heard that.
Pardon me?
Tunnels, I wonder if there's any tunnels,
Tunnels.
If you go along the trail there, you see, if you look up the stairs and you go up the landing, you'll see this.
I've-
What looks like a brick in possibility of there was a.
I've heard of homes that did have tunnels and did have outlets to the
Or
pump.
wasn't there one builder, the person you're talking about, that was Margaret Hagerman, that built this and that?
Yeah, that was Benjamin Lefkowski. But I've not heard tunnels associated with his buildings. But be that as it may. Here we go to some Sanborn maps. Sanborn fire insurance rate maps were prepared for many of the cities. It established and helped insurance firms calculate risk for fire and to establish premiums. They made these books, wonderful, wonderful resources. We had a set with city planning. And these identify the type of buildings, the location of buildings. You can gather a lot of information from it. These 3 houses on the corner of Willamette and Beverly Place still exist. Beverly Place itself is gone. The house to the north of it, that's the Ellen Brimley house, that remains. And the blue house here is the Ray house, and it remains. Here we have the Hagerman Mansion, the Carriage House. This is a stone house that was demolished, and they put the Russ Ammer Arms Apartments here.
They ever call it the Russia House?
Here we have the Pastorius House, Francis Pastorius, adjacent to the Gwynn Love House, which is also called the Dale House. So in the Fine Arts Center ended up occupying this area. So we're going to go through chronologically, taking a look at the buildings that are in the district. Not all buildings will be nominated for overlay zone. We want to have the property owners concurrence. And then we will see what planning and council has to say. This is a Hageman mansion. This was built in 1885 to 1886. This is only 15 years after the town was founded. Hagerman was a industrialist from Milwaukee. He had tuberculosis. He came here expecting to die, and he got better. And so he figured, well, heck, I'll build a house. So this is the house he built. You can see the mansion itself. This is the carriage house back behind, and it's still there. Yes, sir.
Oh, no, when is he exactly?
Well, you wouldn't, this is 610 North Cascade. It's changed.
Did he come from Michigan? From Michigan. He said he came from Milwaukee.
I think it was Milwaukee was he resigned. He may have originally come from Michigan. He was in the steel industry. So this is the building as it appears now. It's much changed. You have wings to the north and the south and to the west. The facade has been altered. But if you study the two houses, you can see fragments and elements of the building which did remain. This is now apartments. This
It was designed in the beginning to change.
no. It was designed as a single family residence.
Right, but then it became apartments around early 19.
About 1928. We'll get there. The carriage house, it's typical. You had carriage houses that were located to the rear of properties, which is where you had your carriages and your horses, and your stable and barn, and all the stuff that comes from horses. The Parkside neighborhood tracks how we deal with transportation for individual properties. They had a carriage house that was a barn. Eventually, people started putting in garages. This now is all residential. And I might point out, the Hageman Mansion is listed in the National Register. The carriage house is not. This is the Gwynn Love House, built in 1886. It's a glorious, impressive example of Queen Anne architecture with English influences shown by the half timbering that you find up in the gables. Edmondson Gwynn came here. He had tuberculosis. He barely survived the completion of this house. It eventually was fell into the hands of investors. The Dale House project now owns it, uses it for both residential and office purposes. This is listed in the National Register. The Pastorius House. Francis Pastorius was an early pioneer in Colorado Springs. His family got here in the early 1880s. They got invested in real estate very early. He eventually branched out into finance. Francis eventually then became president of the Colorado Springs Realty and Investment Company, which developed land and planted subdivisions and built houses throughout the city. He also struck success. He was an early investor in the Cripple Creek mining district. So this house is particularly interesting. It was designed by Francis's brother. And what's really cool is if you look up into the eaves, you find little bits of crushed glass that are embedded. And that was intentionally done to emulate the wealth of the Cripple Creek gold mining district. So here we come into some of the buildings on the south side of Willamette. I notice Cheryl calls it Willamette. Everybody from Oregon calls it Willamette. Here we mispronounce it as well. We mispronounce lots of streets.
Yeah.
Was it named after?
Pardon me?
Was it named after?
Well, it was named, they don't know who actually named the streets, but the north-south streets were named after mountain ranges, and the east-west streets were named after drainages of rivers. So you have the Cashtaputa River, which is up near Fort Collins, the Yampa River, and then you have the Sierra Nevadas, the Cascades.
Willamette Valley, this is.
Yeah, yeah. So this has been altered, but this is nice little Dutch colonial revival. This is built around 1904. This house has lots of details, nice porch tucked under the porch roof. No particular style really, but is really nice, sound single family residence and representative of the middle class housing that was built in the first decade of the 20th century. This one is also at the corner of what was Beverly Place and Willamette. This is largely a craftsman style as a consequence of the flared rafter ends and the brackets underneath the gables. This is a glorious house. This is the Ray House. Henry Russell Ray was an intellectual. He was a longtime member and leader of the Chamber of Commerce. He was one of the founders of the Town and Gown Golf Club and a number of other endeavors. He was regarded as an intellectual. This house is particularly impressive. It was designed by the firm of Douglas Hetherington in 1906. They were premier home builders and designers here in Colorado Springs. And this is a rustic style Dutch colonial revival. Say that 12 times. It was cited for its views to the west. And they are really, really incredible. You can also see in the foot over here, this is the formal entry to Monument Valley Park. There is a overlook with a path that leads down to the park. And so this is the entryway to it. This is the Ellen Brimley house. Miss Ellen Brimley, came here as a pioneer with her sister and brother-in-law, Dr. B.D.F. Adams. He was quite a noteworthy individual. But Ellen was particularly important because she was quite the social worker here in Colorado Springs. She led the YWCA for many decades. She was part of the Women's Educational Society. She was a member of the library and the Associated Charities, which was an early manifestation of the United Way. This house has been added on to, both to the south and to the north, but the center of the house retains its integrity and the additions are very compatible with the original house. Craftsman style, this is located up on North Cascade Avenue. This is the Nifong House. Dr. Nifong was a surgeon. This is the Garrett House, just south of the Nifong House. This home was regarded as a particularly good example of craftsman style. This porte cochere was an addition. One of the nice things is you can tell from the brackets, they're not quite the same as the brackets for the remainder of the house. That way you can tell it's different. It was added later, but it's very compatible. Garrett was an interesting character. He was a longtime owner of a sporting goods store, which sold guns, ammo, also cigars, candy. He had a soda fountain in it. As a young man, he was the amateur national trap shooting champion of the United States. So he's quite an individual. This is the Cascade Apartments at 702 North Cascade. This must have been really amazing. This was built about 1916. This was built to house 6 apartments. So you can see that they must have been sizable. It must have been very elegant living. One thing that's really important is that this is the first building that has an attached garage. Before, garages were treated like stables. But now they're starting to attach them because people are relying on the automobile. And that's one of the hallmarks of this district. This is a simple craftsman style. Now we get to Benjamin Lefkowski. This is a house in the Lefkowski subdivision, the first one built. Benjamin and his wife Ethel Pylan Lefkowski are quite a pair. Benjamin was a Russian immigrant. He got here in 1915. He acquired 1914. He purchased a photography studio in Beaumont, Texas. And then he wooed and wed Ethel Pylan, who was a concert pianist trained out east. She had returned home to Beaumont, Texas. She was, I believe, 32 when they wed, so she was getting to be somewhat of a spinster. And Lefkowski was younger than her, so he was probably this dashing European. He had studied fine arts as a youth, and when he managed to take care of his livelihood through the photographic studio, they moved here in 1922. They had vacationed here, had admired the scenery and the climate, and they had seen the vacant Hagerman Mansion, which had sat unused for several years. They purchased it, and they intended to build an artist studio. Instead, they turned to land development and construction. Benjamin Lefkowski platted the area west or downhill from the Hagerman Mansion and the carriage house, platted it into single-family lots. 9 homes were built on these lots. This was the first home. This is over 26 West Willamette. It's north of the Ray House. There were only 2 buildings that weren't designed and constructed by Lefkowski, and this is one of them. This was Dr. Moses. He had this house built. It's an amazing building. The views from this area up here must be wonderful, looking to the south to Shining Mountain. The entrance is off to the side. There's no obvious entry in front. This looks like a Craftsman gable, but Craftsman doesn't use tile roofs, so it's a combination of things. The owners were a little bit miffed, I think, when I characterized it as there's no discernible style. Doesn't mean it's not stylish, but you can't say this was a Queen Anne or a Craftsman. It didn't say. Pardon me?
The sense.
Okay. Okay, now we're getting into the homes that Lefkowski designed. This is on 619 Park Terrace Avenue. This actually is regarded as a Spanish mission style with the curvilinear parapets on either side. This is beautiful. This is also a Spanish mission revival. The driveway leads around the house, down the hill, and you had a built-in garage that you entered from the rear of the house. All the houses on Park Terrace Drive had this feature of parking back behind. Again, Spanish revival, Spanish mission revival. This was a Halleck house. I have to do a personal note. The gentleman who headed up the community development department of the city, when I first joined the city, lives in this house with his wife. It's gorgeous. Jim Ringy. This is the Griswold house. This is one of the other 2 houses that Lefkowski did not build or design.
If somebody pulls an RV up.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the brother-in-law.
This is the Jones house, and it's really a beautiful example of Mediterranean revival architecture. What you have are the tile roof, the shallow pitch. You've got rounded windows and entries. You have use of wrought iron in second story areas. And what's really amazing, Cheryl and I visited this house and talked with the owner, and the exterior stucco is unique. And when you look at it, it's like, how did they apply it? Apparently it was applied with a boot or a shoe. That's what they used to create the pattern. But it really is, it's a wonderful building. Now we're going to go down to Zyder Z. It is the street that parallels and fronts onto Monument Valley Park. This is the northernmost property. Lefkowski actually resided, was the first occupant, so we call it the Lefkowski House. This is a Mediterranean revival style. We could go into the details of it, but I think time is short, so we won't bore you. But all three of these properties were built in sequence for and occupied by significant members of the society. All three of them also had garages that have since been converted into residential use. But all three of them had front-facing garages. That's now a standard feature in people's homes, but this was new at the time. Mission Revival on South Willamette. Small, modest, but with plenty of detail and character. This is the plainest building in the district. This was built around 1928, and it's just a very simple ranch style. Okay, in 1928, the Lefkowskis, having finished their subdivision development down the hill, they turned their attention back to the mansion. And this shot really shows how they built the wings. There's an equivalent one on the north side, and then this is an addition on the west. The Lefkowskis designed the rooms and the apartments in the original castle very carefully. Winfield Scott Stratton was the carpenter. He had installed the woodworking in the rooms that you found in the mansion. So you had a parlor, you had a banquet room, you had a library. Each of them displayed different woods. You would have mahogany, you had oak, you had birds on maple. When the Lefkowskis cut this building up for apartments, and they got 20 apartments out of it, they made sure that they did not damage the walls and the assorted fabric. They kept that as intact as possible. So this area did have, additional units, but for the most part, this area adjacent to the castle was where they put the kitchens and the bathrooms. So they created as little damage to the original fabric as possible.
Do that before he became wealthy.
That's right. That's right. This house was built in 1886. Stratton was one of the major home builders in Colorado Springs at the time. And he didn't strike it rich until about 1896. This is the Russ Ammer Arms Apartments. This is a cool story of this building. Lefkowski originally anticipated that he would build this as a European style hotel that also contained residences. So you would have an apartment, but you'd have a hotel with a dining area, and it didn't work. He ran into complications regarding financing because of the Depression, and other things just kept interrupting. Finally, in 1936, he connected with an architect named Charles Thomas. Thomas was very active here in Uptown, historic Uptown neighborhood. He designed the Shepherd Citation Building across the street from us. He converted the Bemis House into apartments, but he also designed this. It opened in 1939 and was immediately popular. Lefkowski moved into this and lived here many years.
The hotel was in
Apartments.
why did it have little tiny little space? Without the little doors, like,
I wasn't aware of that. It's
so
interesting.
you go in there sometime, you can go in there and check it out, and see these little doors, I believe as you pick up your foods, would be the stucco walls or something.
Well, perhaps, perhaps it was, to make it convenient for people to get the boot shine. This little building, this is at, 20 Mesa, Mesa Street. It's now owned by the Colorado College. It was built as a single-family residence, but its claim to fame is that it was a long-time headquarters for the Women's Club. In 1902, the Women's Club was the largest women's social organization in Colorado Springs. It subsequently faded into history, but it's really a marvelous house in a minimal traditional style with the absence of detailing. It's got magnificent stone walls surrounding.
Women's club are very interesting.
I believe so. Did I don't know. Not so. This is another glorious building. This is the Tilley House. This is downhill. The Fine Arts Center is located here. And this is set into the corner of a triangular lot on Mesa Street. Has a great history. The lot was purchased by Lou and Martha Tilley. Their daughter Eve still lives in town. They were artists and closely associated with the Fine Arts Center. They were part of the social grouping, and they fell in with a gentleman by the name of Gordon Ingram. Gordon was an architect in town, and Ingram were some of the premier modern architecture firm, and did a lot of wonderful buildings. Elizabeth Wright Ingram was Gordon's wife. She was the granddaughter of Frank Lloyd Wright. So, when they costed out the building and see what it would cost to construct, the Tilleys were artists and they didn't have that money. So they contracted what they had to, but the rest of it they built by hand over several years. And apparently the interior is just exquisite.
So it's a one family residence throughout its entire life. So it's
Yes.
the same family.
Yes, same family as under.
My house only cleaned the retaining wall once a week.
Doing what?
They only cleaned the retaining wall once a week.
Now, it's, one thing I might point out, I count myself very lucky to get a good photograph of this because of the trees. It creates privacy, particularly when it's growing, so you can't get a good photo of the house. Two more properties. These were located on the Dale House grounds. There are two identical structures. They're duplexes. They were added in 1955. One's on Dale, one's on North Cascade. And I use this as an illustration of whoever owned the Dale House wanted to generate more income. And so they built these. They could have added on to the Dale House, but instead they built these separate dwellings. And I think it's a way of generating the revenue you need while respecting the historic fabric. Something like that, except they're not attached. Okay, next steps, what happens? As Cheryl had identified, this is a voluntary effort. We're waiting to hear from as many people as possible before we go to the city. And the board will decide whether we should go to the city. We've reserved a spot, but we haven't committed to actually pulling through yet. And so we have to determine what the boundaries are, get the legal descriptions, you have to write the justification before you approach the city. So we have Von Hopes, we've had over half of the property owners have agreed to the overlay zoning. We're not going to try to force people that don't like it into the district. That's not neighborly. We're hoping that those people that do get designated, the main tangible advantage of designation is you have access to the tax credits for historic preservation. It's a 20% tax credit on the eligible costs. And so it's not just says they have to be spent on historic fabric. You don't have to, you know, repair, the walls or the windows unless you want to. But you get 20% off. So if you have, let's say you need a new boiler, you need to re-engineer your wiring in your house. Because old buildings need reinvestment. Well, if your project costs you $20,000, 20% tax credit is $4,000, you get to take off your state income taxes.
Do you have any builders that specialize in this type of?
Yes. Yes. Yes, but you got to search and they're busy. But once you're overlay zone, if the owner of a residence can access, basically you have to have Colorado income to be able to take a tax credit. So nonprofits can apply and religious institutions can apply. But if you're overlay zone and you're an institution or a nonprofit, you can apply to the state historical grant fund. So overlay zoning makes you eligible for a number of tangible financial benefits, aside from reinforcing private neighborhood activity, the valuing of beautiful fabric. So that concludes my presentation. I'll answer any questions you might have. Yes, ma'am.
What kinds of occupations and jobs would the people have who first bought these homes on this street and everything? What kind of work did you do?
Many of them were physicians. Many of them were in retail, in the shops.
Okay.
Dry goods.
Dry goods. You know, we had the cigar shop owner, the gun shop owner. And others were just simple professions. So they had a tendency, you know, to have a certain degree of status before they got into the scene.
Just curious.
Yes,
So, I was speaking with Cheryl earlier, I've been renovating a place on 220 East Monument Street. Just east of Nevada in Weber. Anyway, long story endless. I applied for the credits for the historic, for the house. I think it was 20% from the state.
yes,
Is that, is the
That's it.
price we're talking about?
yeah.
But they
You're
turned
in
me-
Weber Wasatch, so you're already designated.
Yeah, I'm already designated, but I was gonna say there are stipulations.
Yes.
Of what you can and cannot do.
Yes.
Would they
Yes,
turn
but-
you down?
Well, I put, all the clapboard was completely shot. They wanted me to save, but it was warped and it was broken and I ended up putting the hardy board siding, which is clapboard, but it's. you know.
It's.
So they turned me down. It was substantial. It was like 25 or 30 grand or something. Yeah.
Are you the sculptor?
I'm sorry, yeah, I'm a sculptor.
Are you the one that has those big sculptures on the front?
No,
yeah.
Dude.
Oh, not in the front, but I have the spores and everything there.
Yeah, well,
that's-
you said you have
Oh,
the
that's
sculptures.
you?
That's
me,
you.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, cool.
I'm
Oh,
trying to clean up the
man.
neighborhood here.
No,
It's really tired down.
Oh. I just wanted to check some of your sculptures that are on and then
I
take it to
know.
my house.
We used to fabricate there I was just a young broke artist, and so that was my studio. But anymore, we've got warehouses elsewhere and all that, so I'm trying to finish it up. Anyway,
You've been doing a lot of work on that place. It looks great. Yeah, it does.
Do you know of Stratton ever doing metal work?
I do not.
Know that?
I've only known him in association with woodwork as a carpenter.
So I'm referring to the panels in the Hagerman Mansion in the foyer there. I've heard through the grapevine that he did a puzzle, but I haven't been able to verify.
I've not run across that.
Did you hear that the daughters of the builder of the neighborhood disappeared mysteriously?
I had not heard that.
Something like that. I was wondering about the tunnels.
Yeah, the tunnels, yeah.
Good job.
Well, any other questions?
can we get, I was thinking on, I found a map from 1882, from Colorado Springs, and my house is on there. And they have it listed at 1900, but that's it's just the oldest map I can find, and when it's all said and done, I want to put a brass plaque on the house.
Right.
Is that true? I have to go through the historical society for that?
Oh, you can put it on.
All right, and is it possible to find imagery or whatever through the city to see if the house is actually older than it actually, you know, than it's.
Nothing to
On our website, there's resources for home, for owners.
Okay.
Owners, you can go on there, and there's tons of advice from,
Okay, great,
other people who researched their homes and how to big stuff from the city.
okay.
Unfortunately, what is the one that's, the downtown library is closed right now, so a lot of them are not available, till what, end of March, is what they said, I'm not sure.
Real quick, disregard my comment about my wife, she's every night. But
Oh, no.
she got a house out in North Cascade, wood, and she can give that same presentation you did. I gotta hook her up with you guys.
Okay,
Oh, that's awesome.
That is awesome. Yeah.
well,
Maybe she wants to be a trader.
I nominate the gentleman that speaks a lot.
well, I encourage you to take a look at the website. What I've gone through is just touching the surface of everything that we found. And I really have to applaud Mariah. I've never seen a historic website as thorough and as easy to investigate, so.
That's a good
kudos.
thing.
And if you guys have stories about your homes, we're interested, we want to get up on the website, we'll put there some videos or the show.
Cool. And then the final thing is, this was recorded, so if you need to go back and take the films, you certainly will be able to do that.
That'd be on
the
website or YouTube?
We have, it's at the bottom of our website, there's a links there, and we'll upload it to YouTube.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Who brought you? That was amazing.
Wow.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. They-
Thank you, Sharon. Thanks, Leah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.